Greensboro, and I believe it's 7 of the 9 small towns. Jamestown and I think Sedalia, which is the farthest one out. Is it Sedalia or Whitsett? Whitsett is not in our urban area. Oh, they are?
Yes, Whitsett and Sedalia are.
So Jamestown is not.
Jamestown.
And basically, what these organizations are intended to do is plan for major regional transportation needs. I did some research before I went to that meeting and found that in almost every case where there's a major metropolitan area that has an urban area with lots of small communities on the side of it, that all of the jurisdictions sit on these boards and have a seat at the table, except for the Greensboro urban area metropolitan planning organization. In our case, there are 3 City of Greensboro board members. There are 2 Guilford County members, and there is a state transportation board member. So this was actually addressed about 8 years ago, and that's when they got the second county commissioner on there, because the county commissioners are supposed to be looking out for our best interests. I say that with a smirk. Clearly, they may, and I certainly hope that they do when they're on that board representing us as county residents. But the reality is that what we have to do is we have to go hand in hand. They have allowed us to have a little point on their agenda, to have our comments from the small towns. And basically, I expressed this to the federal authorities that were there doing this reevaluation. And I haven't heard back from them as to whether or not they plan on doing anything about that. But it did raise the ears of the chair of the MPO, and we did have a short discussion about, well, what do we want? So I'll ask the council, what do we want? Do we want to have a seat at the table as the 3rd largest town in Guilford County, or are we willing to share that seat with other jurisdictions, or are you satisfied with the way things are right now?
Well, we're satisfied now because we didn't know any other way. But we need to get on that.
What does the town manager suggest?
You made that suggestion to the MPO.
I believe that there should be representation by the small towns. Now, I tend to look at things on a regional level and can understand why there would be concern by the City of Greensboro to have 9 other jurisdictions up there with each a seat, because obviously the way things would get voted on would change pretty significantly. That being said, I think that it is reasonable for us to request a seat for ourselves. We are the 3rd largest town. We're the 2nd largest in the actual MPO. Greensboro's got 3, the county's got 2, and the state has 1. We can have 1. Whether we want to make a commitment to the other jurisdictions, the other small towns, that we will do our best to represent them too, so that they would have at least a conduit to come forward and make that request, so that Stokesdale, Oak Ridge, whatever an issue that they knew that they had a friendly voice on that board. That's more of a commitment we would make than a formal stance. It is typically held by a board member, so it does commit a board member to attend monthly meetings and become pretty knowledgeable about transportation projects. But there's an awful lot of money that gets spent through the MPO, and things are happening at the MPO that affect us, whether we like it or not, like road projects. And if we have a seat at the table, we might have a little bit more room to maneuver and discuss things before they become surprises to us and our citizens.
I think the town is big enough to warrant that, and I think that some of the issues that are coming up, just like the ones we discussed earlier, are important enough that we need to have a seat at the table. Otherwise, we're just going to get whatever they decide to give us or shove down our throats. We need their representative there.
I think we should have one, I think,
I agree.
or at least try to get one.
Is that consensus, or take a vote? You want me to put it in writing and see what I can do?
Let's do a motion and request MPO to look at this and put it in a letter that motion, vote to be unanimous. What do you think?
I think we need to take some action.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we request a seat.
Okay.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Rice, second, Mr. Williams, further discussion. All in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Okay, unanimous. And we think the best way is to just go ahead and send a letter. Either way, we need to make sure that we have a future representative there. Michael has gone some, I'm going to try to go, and we'll just, if we can't, we need to perhaps follow some of y'all to go as far as, so that we can have a presence there. The MPO meeting, monthly meeting. Or is there 2 week meetings?
Yeah, they have monthly, generally it's monthly meetings on a Wednesday, and there are actually 2 meetings that occur. One's called TAC and one's called the TCC. TAC is the Technical Advisory Committee meeting, and that's essentially staff level, and that occurs in the mornings. And then the afternoons is the TCC, which is the board members essentially, that basically, it's almost going to the same meeting, except the action takes place at the second meeting. Discussion takes place in the first meeting. Discussion takes place both, but different levels of discussion. So what we usually try to do is attend the afternoon meetings, because that's where the board members are, that's where the decisions are made. So we try to get in front of them as much as we can.
Do you think it's beneficial to have a permanent member, or is it okay for a different person to attend? Would it be effective if a different person attends, as effective as if we had a permanent member?
Well, for just showing up, anyone can do that, but you don't get a voice necessarily. If we're talking about a permanent member, meaning that if we get a seat, I would put a permanent member in there that's renewed every year or something like that, because they become familiar with all the terms and all that, and then there can always be a replacement, second person.
Okay. Public Safety Committee ordinance. Business for council. We have this in our packet. We'll approve some of this, Michael.
I'm sorry.
You want to go ahead and brief us on this, although I think it's...
This is basically, we presented this last month for you to review, and there was some comments on it, but I didn't receive any specific comments for adjustments, so it's still in their hands. I think the number one question was who decides, I think, what they actually reviewed or something like that effect. So it hasn't changed since you saw it last month.
Okay.
And if I missed something in that conversation specifically changed, I apologize. And make that change now.
I just have a question on page 3. I don't remember whether we discussed this last month or not, to be honest. Under C2, the committee shall have